Okay, can you just get like the full
Uh,
argument? Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Sorry.
This is just the first conclusion. It's not the full argument. Or
Are you
well, it
like a
is an
semantic
argument.
ex? Are you like a semantic externalist?
Uh, in regards to epistemology,
No, just like I mean, I'm not like obviously contending a premise here. It seems to be like kind of like I think just spoken in P2, like just like the meaning of words would be determined exterior to us, right?
oh no. I think the meaning of words would be linguistic.
Isn't it, what does it mean then for like if there's no intelligibility, there's no like meaning or semantic content?
Yeah, so meaning would in and of itself require intelligibility or like concepts to be intelligible within our linguistic framework.
Do you just mean like you just mean concepts then in terms like
Yeah,
but
I
why do those
guess.
concepts have to be like categories of experience?
No, those concepts wouldn't have to be identical to the categories of experience. Without the
But
categories of
you'd say they have to
experience,
be
they
like
just wouldn't
derived
be
like from them
intelligible.
though, right?
Yeah, they would have the categories of experience within them fundamentally.
Okay, why do they need to be derived from them?
Uh, what do you mean by derived from the categories of experience? They just would
Like
have them fundamentally.
like
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 meaning itself.
yeah,
You're
like
the way
meaning
I'm
yeah,
arguing them
sorry.
is it would have identity over time, identity over change, whatever.
Well, I know,
If
but this is like
these
a
didn't,
very this is like a pretty strong take on meaning, right? Because some people just take meaning to be like constructed within like a science system, right? And doesn't they don't appeal to like these like categories of experience, right? But
within a science, you mean like Quine's ontology? I don't, an
no,
ontology
like
or
do you know so sir?
so sir? No, I haven't really
Or
read
it's
them.
like a linguist, right? Well, I'm just saying I'm not saying I'm holding to them, right? But I'm just confused, like because I mean he'd be fine unless you're trying to say that like the categories so sir would use to construct such a science system, right? And derive the meaning of the science, right? Within said system would require like categories of experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple claim. It's just that any sort of meaning that we can have would fundamentally require the categories of experience to
Okay.
obtain.
Okay. So, okay. And
Yeah.
what are those categories of experience look like?
Yeah. So it would be basically like just the Kantian categories of experience. There could be some added on extra, but I wouldn't give an exhaustive list. It'd just be basic stuff like identity over time, identity over change. There being a sort of, I guess, regularity to these concepts, which is just what I described. Um,
Are you like being
yeah, just
strictly
basic
Kantian,
stuff.
or do you like you add more that aren't Kantian?
There could be more that aren't Kantian. I'm open to that.
Well, space and
I'm
time
not
wouldn't be a
strict with them.
category. That's part of the sensibility. But like, okay, I'll try to give you an example. What about like, so we have this science system, right? Um, and there are non-propositional content. Oh my God, sorry, there is non-propositional content. So you're like, I guess, interrogatives or declaratives, right? Sorry, not declaratives. Expressions. Presumably,
Yeah,
of course, you're saying you would need these categories of experience, right? Um,
for them to
to
be intelligible.
for them to be intelligible, right? Are you like a Kantian in the sense that you're deriving the categories of experience from the categories of the proposition?
So I would be. You're asking me how I derive the categories of experience?
Well, are you like a Kantian in the sense that like, you would derive them from the proposition? Yeah.
Well, I would say the way I would derive them, and if I'm understanding it properly, is how I would know what are the categories of experience. Or wouldn't that be an epistemic question? I'm kind of confused here.
Well, kind of, yeah. Like, for how would you? Well, not like that. How would you know them? But I guess like, where they come from, right? Because Kant would just say like they come from like what we take a proposition to be, right? That's why I'm just interested in where they come from.
Oh no, I wouldn't be Kantian in that regard. I would just say the categories of experience would just come from how we, in very basic terms, what underlies our experience, or I guess
Well, I
intelligible
mean,
conscious thought.
are you saying like we have like these experiences, and then we're asking like, of course, what
Yeah,
the
and they're
necessary set of
lawful
experiences?
and they have underlying sort of reference or laws, I guess,
Okay,
within
well
them.
that's fine for like space and time, but not like for things like causality or like I'm not confused how you would get to those. I guess.
I wouldn't say causality is something that's
Well, I guess identity over time
uh,
then, like
yeah,
persistence.
identity over time wouldn't be causality. It would just be we'd assign identity to an object,
Well,
and
I'm just thinking a
we
different one there. Yeah, like
yeah.
well,
So I wouldn't. Yep.
or you think we couldn't have experience? Like there couldn't be like, I don't know what the modal scope is, of course, right? I'm just gonna say like I guess like colloquially, like we couldn't have experience without like identity over time.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, you know what that entails, right?
No, I don't see like the contradiction. I get it with like space and time,
Okay,
right?
so we
But it would
see
just be like it would just be like a very incomprehensible like experience, right? There wouldn't be like any
it,
like rhyme or
it
reason to
would be
it.
completely incomprehensible. That's kind of the point.
Right, but the thing when you derive space and time, you're entailing a contradiction, like like
Oh no,
how we
there wouldn't
define
have
things
to
in
be.
experience.
Okay, there wouldn't have to be like a contradiction necessarily. It would just have to be incomprehensible.
Oh well, okay. You're definitely like a very odd like Kantian then, because Kant would just or like a proto like a neo Kantian or something. Because Kant would just say that there is a direct P and not P in space and time, not obtaining,
Yeah,
if
I
experience
wouldn't make
obtains, right?
that kind of claim. I would just say when we're looking at existence itself, we're only able to look at things that are meaningful or comprehensible. We're not able, like incomprehensible existence. That's kind of I don't even understand that. But if you can give a counterexample of sorts, I'd
Well,
be open
okay,
to that.
I'll try to give it. I'm not sure how you would justify like identity or these sorts of things, right? Um, Especially if you're deriving them, say, from like existence, right? If you're deriving them straight like empirically, then obviously you have the Hume, counter examples like a constant conjunction, things like that, right? But if you're not deriving
No,
it via
that's
like a
not
P
just
and not P
empirically.
within like the concept
It's
itself,
conceptually as well within our mind.
okay, well, I kind of need like the contradiction or something because presumably it's I think just like even like epistemically possible, right? Like one of these lower moral scopes that you could have experience without identity over time. There could exist experience without identity over time.
Well, there could exist experience without identity over time. It just wouldn't be comprehensible.
Um, well, I mean, like, are these like not like necessary categories of all experience then? I thought they were like,
They're necessary. So the way
or just
I would
just
look at it,
for I
yeah,
guess intelligible experience.
yeah, they'd be necessary for intelligible experience. If we're saying, let's say, hypothetically, we have a human that is born that has no, uh,
And then it goes off into intelligible categories of experience, such as identity over time, right?
yeah, so there would be,
So it's like
when
a
it comes
like
to
kind of like
space and
first
time,
order, second order.
I would also consider space and time mind dependent as well.
Oh no, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine to say that space and time would be like I get like the P and not P there, obviously, right? They say these are these like sort of like abstract like um okay, I'm just trying to think about it, right? So you have like just like imagine your head, you have like categories of experience, space and time, and like an arrow going down where it's like categories of intelligible experience and like identity over time sort of thing, right?
Sure, sure.
So it'd be like being like based off like levels then I assume.
Well, when it comes to the categories of experience, there would be ones that would fall under what would make experience intelligible, right? Those would be like identity over time, identity over change, regularity in nature, whatever. And then there would be the other ones, which would be space and time itself, right? As you described it. Am I getting what
Well
you're
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it clear. I'm none of this is like I guess would be contentious. Maybe you can draw some contentions here, right? But just because you said you seem to be like kind of like a Kantian and kind of not a Kantian in terms of like, because Kant obviously would not take that to be like a hierarchy here, right? Obviously, like the
Yeah.
transcendental unity of perception would do this all at once. I mean, no hierarchy, right? But you seem to invoke that there is a hierarchy of these like sort of like fundamental categories of experience, and then these less fundamental ones, right?
Yeah, just so you have a background, I have read Kant, but I've only read his Prolegomena and
Uh,
only like sort of 80% because I kind of was like, okay, I already understand all this and then left it off
yeah.
there. But I'm mostly influenced by Berkeley, somewhat like all the other stuff I've read, like
You could be
Fichte and Schelling,
like a
whatnot.
transcendental like Thomas, right? This sounds like a transcendental Thomas position. Well, the way that
I'm not a
strikes me as
Thomist. No, I'm not a Thomist.
well, I guess like a type of one,
Yeah.
but okay, that's fine. Um,
All
and then
right.
intelligible. Okay, so I understand the categories. And then what does intelligible mean exactly?
Intelligible would mean, well, I guess the way I would put it here would be anything that can be effectively that would have a meaning or be could have semantic content.
Okay. Um, and then for okay, then we talk about the sign system. I want to go back to the sign system then because it seems to me we can have like a system of signs that can be within I guess space and time in the abstract way Kant puts where it's like succession and uh like literally drawing things in your head for geometry. Um,
Right.
I need we need to outline for me like how things like identity over time, especially of objects, would matter for semantic content within like some science system or like some linguistic system.
For a sign system. So when we speak about a sign system or a linguistic system, I want to know what context we're talking about. Are you talking about just like a language or like sign language or what?
Well, it could be like a natural language, right? So like so serious you have a natural language would just be that there's signifieds and there's signifiers.
Yeah,
The signified is just like the thing we're
yeah,
invoking, maybe like
they'd
a
have
tree,
identity over
right?
time
Right,
for
but what
if you
about
want to
like
use it.
yeah, I'm more so talking about like other things though. Like well, so, I'll explain. Like, a signifier is just the way we're saying it, right? So the word, a sound, our mouth, that sort of thing, right? And then the sign is the meaning that's produced from the unity of these two things. But the kind of like thing I presented to you earlier was within this sign system. Well, maybe like propositions, right? Um, some of them are like there is a tree over like there is a tree is true would require things like identity over time. That's fine. What about without like expressions though, like of emotion or of like interrogatives like questions?
Yeah, so when it comes to propositions, they'd obviously require identity over time. But you're saying when it comes to emotions or expressions of like emotions, like are you talking about like doxastic language, like stuff
No,
like
not
that?
not
You're saying
doxastic language because okay, I think honestly there is this issue with propositions too. We can go over that later because it's like a good faith discussion, honestly. Um, not really being mean to each other. I mean more so with
yeah,
like even like commands or like not expression but I mean like I am angry. Do you know like how like in non-cognitivism
yeah,
and metaethics they'll translate like stealing is wrong to like boo stealing. Like there's like some like boo stealing.
yeah.
Like that still has meaning, right? But defined
And
within the
I would
system.
argue it has identity over time for like the content in question, just by virtue of it retaining what it means over time. That's kind of how it would.
Right. So like it has identity the conceptual identity then kind of.
Yeah, it has identity conceptually. The meaning, it has meaning, and what? Well, you know about Husserl, right?
Yeah, I know so.
This whole thing about meaning fulfillment. That's also kind of influenced me. I've
Hmm.
only read his logical investigations, though. I haven't read the parts about the transcendental ego and other
I
stuff.
actually
But
haven't read
yeah.
Logical Investigation. I've only read Ideas One. It's it. I kind of like
Yeah.
I just like shot myself in the foot by reading that first. Honestly, that was like a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah. Because he is pretty. He does yap. But yeah. So in logical investigations, he speaks about like the meaning of things and their meaning fulfillment. That would just be within the meaning, right? So it would just be what is like conceptual. It would have identity over time in your head when you're imagining that emotive, I guess, state or whatever, or having that emotive state would have. Yeah, I'm not articulating it well, but do you understand what I'm
I,
trying to say here?
I get what you're saying with that, and I think maybe I could even somewhat agree here to the fact that there does require there to be a sense of identity over time for like linguistic systems. Like when I assert, I am or boo stealing, there is a sense in which maybe I'm saying like, well, I'm asserting, right? So it invokes time, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
I guess maybe like when you say categories of experience, right? That would just refer obviously to um, like objects, um, actually interacting with the world, for instance, right? Um,
It wouldn't refer
so
to mental.
well, it could be like meant like objects in the sense of like you're obviously like an idealist, right? So like objects would of course
Yeah.
be the kind of mental for you, right? But I just mean in
Yeah.
terms of translating because we've already established that like there is this hierarchy, right? Where we have like these categories of experience at the top, and maybe those I can say, well, that's definitely apparent in linguistic systems, right? But then it goes lower and
Yeah.
lower, and um, when you have things like identity over time, like I wouldn't say a sentence is exactly within time of itself, right? Especially like in a signed system, right? It might be with sorry, has identity over time. It might be like in time, right? But unless
The
I'm
identity
not sure
would
to me
change. Yeah.
for it to have like identity though. What would be
Well,
the idea?
yeah, I do
If
think.
someone says like well okay sorry if someone says like boo stealing, right? Um, like I'm not sure the identity over time for that would even be in terms of the way you're describing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the identity over time for it would only be the case if it had some fixed inherent meaning. That's always the meaning in all contexts. But I obviously don't think that's the case because I mean, the Derrida kind of showed that language is pretty unstable and changes meaning even when it's unequivocal. But even if that were to be the case, there would still be a kind of identity, let's say in a reductive sense, of like the words or the letters as are being perceived in a subjective mind, right? So even if it's the case that it's different for other people, it can sort of intersubjectively correspond to a shared referent, which would somewhat have identity over time. But the
Well,
identity over
okay.
time would only be in the subjective mind.
Well, I mean, I like the Derrida. reference. It's pretty funny. Where does the go, bro? But okay, I can agree
True.
with of course with reference. Obviously, identity over time seems I can say prima facie it's correct, right? Um, but when it comes to like boo stealing, for instance, right? It did seem to give like it clarified to me exactly why it has identity over time. Like I say it's within time, right? I'm not sure for it to like have like identity. What do you mean for it to have like identity? Like,
What? So the statement "boo stealing" would be identical to the statement "boo stealing."
well, I understand that, but I'm more so like obviously that invoke like a theory of identity, then, right? Like Leibniz or something like that.
Sure. I mean, I'm fine with that.
And okay, so obviously the properties of boo stealing would be identical to the properties of boo stealing.
Yeah, sure.
What would be the properties like boo stealing though?
Properties of boo stealing. It would just
Yeah.
be, in this case, within like a subjective mind, it would just be, um, let's say the meaning, because the meaning wouldn't, well, the meaning could change, but let's say it would still be within like a fixed kind of referent, let's just say, of what it means to that subject at one point and what it could mean to that
Well,
subject at another point.
like a Saussurian, right? When it say that like the meaning is strictly dependent on the subject, he more so it can be explained or it can be defined within the system and how it interacts with stuff, right? Um, it doesn't really matter for us though, but I'm just trying to avoid the referent thing because if there's a referent, then it's just pretty easy to tell, what's going on. But you seem to like kind of just say like, or when I ask for the um, properties of the mean
Yeah,
the expression, sorry, yeah, it's just the property has a property of being meaningful, like having meaning.
sure.
So it'd just be like they have this like their meanings are identical to each other.
The meanings between, let's say, you saying the statement now and you saying it like in 5 years, the
Oh
way
no,
it
no,
would
no,
have
not that, not
identity
that, no,
over
no, no,
time.
not that.
Oh, what?
I mean like because right now like we're talking about like I asked how like boost stealing has identity. He said, well, boost stealing is identical to boost stealing, right? The proposition is identical. Sorry, the expression is identical to the expression. And then we invoked a Leibnizian account such that it's about the properties. And he said, the property of meaning. So he said the meaning of that expression would be identical. Sorry, the meaning is identical to the meaning, right?
Could I invoke just the statement itself having meaning would be identical to it also having meaning?
That's kind of what I mean, yeah. But well,
Yeah,
having that kind of invoked the sentence, right? As well. We're just trying to look at make us meaning right now. And then when you're saying that, would you also invoke a Leibnizian account when you're talking about the identity of meaning?
the identity of meaning, as in meaning would have the properties that meaning would have, or
Like meaning is identical to itself. Yeah, like the identities of meaning. Oh my god, what am I saying? Can you repeat what you said? I was completely lost there, honestly.
oh, you asked me if I would invoke the Leibnizian law of identity on meaning itself, that meaning would have
Yeah,
the
like
identical properties of meaning.
yeah.
Sure.
What would be like the properties of meaning though?
The properties of meaning would be, uh, let's just say intelligible content. Can I say that? Or,
I don't know. I'm trying to think about if you can say that or not. Um, properties of meaning would be intelligible content.
or just intelligibility? Would that?
Well, obviously, if you invoke intelligibility, then that invokes like a certain subject to intelligize, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to talk about meaning here as not attached to subjects, but simply as meanings defined
But
within
I would
this like
say
Saussurian
meaning is
system, right?
always attached to like a mind or a subject.
Oh, well, like what? Why would I accept that though?
Why would you accept that?
Yeah.
After, all right, so because if meaning is detached, how would meaning even be detached from a mind or a subject?
Okay. Well, that's like a question, but that's like a branch shift. I'm sorry, but I guess in terms of like maybe we can look at meta logic, I guess, for an example. There's like some formal system with um and there's some sort of formal semantics within it, right? And let's just assume, I guess, that formal semantics is working great, and it provides some model that interprets the non-logical symbols within the formal language. Sorry, um, then I wouldn't say there would be any subjects need for that sort of meaning. And same likewise with the Saussurian example, honestly, too. Like, I don't know why
Yeah,
we.
so
Yeah.
there's a formal system that can interpret symbols independent of any subject, is what you said?
Well, the symbols would be like model theory is just about the interpretation of said non-logical symbols, right? Um,
Yeah.
and let's say like we invoke some sort of formal semantics view, and we would constrain the meaning to the symbol to the language itself, right? Because obviously we said is like how could it not be the case, right? That meaning is not attached to subjects, but I don't know, exists independently or whatever. And in this example, right, um, which is also very Saussurian, of course, meaning would just be within that set system, right? It would just be like the relations of the system, its inferential relations especially, right? Um,
Yeah.
and those inferential relations would determine its meaning. So if, like, I guess they can vote like Derrida here and say like, well, what does it mean to be A? Well, it means to be not B, not C, not D, etc. What does it mean for um, some non-logical symbol to be a predicate? Well, to not be a variable, to not be, etc., etc. You get what I'm getting at, right? And that seems to me that it's
Yeah.
immediately wouldn't require subjects, right?
Well, I would say it would rely on structures that would require subjects.
Like
I don't
there needs to be
see,
like a subject to create the structure.
yeah, because when it comes to like subject independent meaning or like mind independent reality, I kind of go like the Berkeley way and be like, how would that even? I don't know if this is an appeal to incredulity, but what would that even look like? Because if it's relying on structures that were built by subjects, I don't
Yeah.
know if that would even count as independent of subjects, right?
Well, I think it's kind of two things here. It is like an appeal to incredulity, yeah, but I don't really care right now to care, because it's a good conversation, right? But it is a sort of genetic fallacy too, because I can accept that formal systems only exist where subjects exist, right? But meaning within the formal system is contained within the formal system based on these like not relations, right? These of course, it's not relations, sorry, between the non-logical symbols and the logical symbols, right? And if, because in that case, well, you need to give the argument that that is required then. That requires subjects, right? Because, and
Yeah.
of course, like even
Well,
like
I
a
would
grounding
say,
relation, when it like, even sorry, even if there was like a grounding relation, right? I would say even a grounding relation to the meaning itself, um, that's the meaning itself still wouldn't require subjects, right?
the meaning of the system. Well, how are you using meaning here in regards
Um,
to what?
I guess like you say meaning isn't like anything with like maybe semantic content. So
So
um,
intelligible content.
I wouldn't even say intelligible content, no, because I mean like I think meaning would just be like a primitive, honestly, almost. Like
And what
the
would
meaning of
be?
X is just what's defined by what's expressed by it.
Yeah, yeah. So it would just be semantic content. That would be what's meaningful within the
Wait, no. So I
formalized
think
system.
meaning would just be like what's being expressed by the thing. I think it's a better one,
Wait.
honestly.
So just what is being expressed by that system? That would be what gives it meaning, or what a meaning
Um,
is in that context.
yeah, like meaning within that system would just be like what is expressed by that system. So like meaning of like a non-logical operator, maybe P, would just be what's expressed by P, right? And of course, you determine that by the not relations with other operators.
Yeah, sure. And then if that system has meaning in that regard, it proves that there's meaning in regards to expressions, in regards to the definition being as like any kind of expression of any system, independent of any subjects expressing that, right?
I think that's fine. I'm just kind of pointing out that even though like this formal system maybe like sorry, excuse me, would rely on someone to create it, obviously set the axioms, set the rules of inference, the logical symbols. Oh my god, excuse me, logical symbols and non-logical symbols. Meaning itself would not be determined by those subjects or need to be intelligible by the subjects, but would just you can say it's grounded in those subjects, like there's a grounding relation, right? But it still exists. No, I don't think it'd be a grounding relation. Actually, I think I was wrong to say that. Sorry, it would still exist in the system.
Exist in what way? Just in regards to it expressing the thing, or
I could just say like abstractly, conceptually, obviously not immaterial, not materially, that's for sure.
yeah. So there's a system that um, just sort of has these axioms and whatnot that aren't related to a subject, right?
Related as in like their meaning is determined by the subject. Yes.
Yeah, it's determined by the way the subject would use them. I mean, it can independently be the case that by virtue of these axioms, there are statements that are true within that system, independent of any human having to sort of just say that is the case or interpret that, right?
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of like attacking this like
Well,
idea that I guess semantics need to be
I'm really,
intelligible.
to me, it seems like the system itself wouldn't have meaning. It would just have sort of, let's say, content that, if perceived by a subject, would then have meaning.
Okay, well, perceived is a weird word. I'll give you meant perceived. I mean like perceived in the mind's eye or something. Right. Well, I
Yeah.
guess the issue is like your of course take on meaning is that um it needs to be intelligible, right? And that intelligibility requires a subject. So I know I said earlier that it doesn't need to be the case that these like formal semantics would need to be intelligible. Um, but let's say like they are intelligible, like they express meaning. Okay, I guess like it's not immediately obvious like why you know intelligibility would require a subject a regard aside from like the I guess maybe like entailment in terms of like well need someone to intelligize it, right? But it seems possible to me like within all the modal scopes essentially um, that there could exist intelligibility of course without subjects to intelligize them.
Well, wouldn't an analogy to this be kind of like a camera taking a picture in regard, or
Uh,
like a computer just outputting, like having like a system and outputting sort of calculations and whatnot? Isn't that
I
kind
don't
of,
know, maybe that could be one. I'm not sure. Depends how you go with it, honestly. 'Cause I think there's multiple ways to think
because
about
you're saying
that.
there's just a formal system, there's just a formal system that exists with axioms, and by virtue of those axioms, it can make certain, it has statements that are true or false by virtue of just the axioms, right?
Well, okay, so yeah, but also axioms, rules of inference, and a language too. So like logical
Yeah,
operators and non-logical operators. Yeah, that's just to add on, right?
yeah,
And then that's
yeah. So
only like
that
the
would just
system.
be
Yeah.
like a computer, right?
Uh I, I guess a yes for now. Yeah, I might take that back though. I don't
I
think I will
mean,
though.
isn't it literally just a computer, or it can be like a
I don't know how the
programming
computer
language?
works. So I'll be honest, I don't program, so I wouldn't know that.
I mean, computers are heavily just based on logic. Just
I
F
know that. I don't know how to program, so I can't
FYI.
say for certain.
Yeah. So
Okay, we
even
get what
if
I'm
it were to
saying
be
with
the
that, right?
case, yeah, even if to read a case that there's a system that exists, uh, that can have true and false statements without a subject having to quote unquote actualize that, that system would still ultimately be grounded in things that I would say are come from minds, right? Because how the axioms would kind of have to be laid out, or at least originate from a mind, right? And by
Mhm.
virtue of that, I don't know if they exist independent of a mind with meaning. I still think there would be. Is this really a genetic fallacy that there would be? It would be traced
Yeah.
ultimately to a mind.
Yeah, it would be a genetic fallacy because you could have the interpretation of formal systems is what the I don't know what that is. The interpretation of formal systems is a thing of model theory, right? But like if your like model theoretic account is like Derridian in nature, such that it just depends on the knots, the negation operator, right?
Yeah, like difference.
Um, difference. Oh yeah, different. Would it be? I don't know enough
Yeah,
about
I'm
that
pretty
to
sure
say
that
for.
would
I
be
don't know if
difference,
that's
right?
certain. I don't know enough to say for certain. Yeah. I just go with
Right.
difference. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think you've read more Derrida than me, obviously. Um, then yeah, it would be a genetic fallacy because like um the properties that come about from these inferential relations, right? Um, while you can argue that they require a subject to exist, would of course not be determined themselves by the subject, right? Or set by the subject, or need to be intelligible by the subject. I mean, presumably you could have like some formal system that's just so complicated that it's just not intelligible by a subject, right? Or any current subjects, maybe. Maybe it could be in the future, right? I don't really know. I'm just trying to give you examples of kind of how I'm thinking here, right?
Yeah, but what would be the conclusion from this? Because I'm
Okay,
in
well,
regards to the first solution.
we try and track. This is a long conversation. Um,
Yeah.
it would be against what you take intelligibility, what you take meaning to be, right? Because of course you take meaning to be like, what is happening in the chat, bro? But of course you would take meaning, right, to be something that's intelligible. Well, I just demonstrated that there
Sure.
can be intelligible. Oh my God, there's something needs to be
There can
intelligible.
be something intelligible without what?
No, not that, not
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying. Okay. You take meaning to be something that's intelligible. Intelligibility requires subjects, which means it requires these categories of experience, right? Well, I
Yeah.
demonstrated that you can't have intelligibility without subjects, such that, of course, intelligibility then would not require the categories of experience.
You said you demonstrated you can have intelligibility without a subject.
Well, I
How?
tried to
You
demonstrate it with
just
like the
told me
formal system example.
it would there would just be a formal system which would have like by virtue of how it's set up, there would be certain statements that would be true by virtue of whatever different whatever
Well,
law. It
I'm
can
not.
be any law.
I'm not like
But I
a.
don't see how that would have meaning in and of itself unless there's a subject to interpret it. That's
Well, I'm not really talking about in terms of like truth conditional semantics, right? I mean, we can get into that, but I'm not really. I don't really care about it right now because the kind of like model that I gave would be like very Derridian, where it would just be defined by the not the. Oh my God, sorry, expressed by the not
yeah,
operator. So what does it mean to be a quantifier? Well, not a universal instantiation,
yeah.
not a
Not
ternstile symbol, et cetera, right?
yeah.
Um,
What does it need to be X? It needs not Y, not B, not Z. You know, until
exactly,
you're
yeah, and
exhausted, right? Yeah.
that's how the inferential relations would determine their own meaning. In most cases, I just don't feel like why we need a subject.
So are you saying that this thing would be completely devoid of a subject?
Well, there could be a subject
In
that creates it and makes it, but like isn't its meaning would not be determined by said subject then.
yeah, but when it comes to meaning, what meaning it has is primitive, right? You said it's kind of what does that mean? That it's like kind of intuitive, or I'm kind of
Well,
confused here.
primitive, I just meant because you asked me what I take meaning to be, and I thought it was kind of primitive. Primitive just means you can't like reduce it anymore, like in a language. So like if you ask me what does good mean, that can only really be defined extensionally, right? Like by like
By what it's
objects
not.
or like no. Well, okay.
Huh?
Okay. There's the thing about this actually. I'll tell you real quick, right? If you ask me like what good is, not only like what's not, yeah, but also it's extensional, right? I can't reduce good down without like what are they called? Synonyms, synonymous words, right?
Synonyms? Synonyms?
Synonyms, yeah. I can't reduce it except for synonyms. Oh my god. Okay, ignore that. Synonyms, dude. So I have to define it extensionally, right? As in like what good things are, right? That's what I kind of meant by primitive there. Then I realized that you could say, well, meaning is just like what X expresses, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think meaning has to be okay, so when I gave what I take to be existence is that which has meaning or semantic content. It can be the case that something can have meaning without semantic content, I think,
What's the
right?
difference between meaning and semantic content?
Well, semantic content would just be how it can be expressed. I would say something having meaning means it can be expressed through semantic content. But I think meaning could just be um because obviously humans had meaning before language. Language isn't something that's inherent to us, right? So I would just take it to be that meaning without semantic content would just be sure, you know what? I'll defend a sort of like I guess givenness, like a transcendental givenness to things. That there can be sort of given meanings that we kind of know inherently or a priori, whatever.
I mean, we could talk about like the given stuff. I'm somewhat familiar with Wilfred Sellers'
Yeah,
Myth of the
yeah. I've
Given.
read his critique as well. Yeah.
Nice. Our response. We could talk about that. But I mean, I don't really know how this would kind of like object the formal systems thing, right? Because you took, I think, sorry, semantics was how the meaning is expressed, right?
I'm saying if there's meaning, it can be expressed semantically. Not that a meaning requires semantic content. There can be some meaning without semantic content.
Well, like a formal system, right? It would say it has meaning. I guess it is being well, it is being expressed, or it could be expressed with semantic content. And of course, that could be the case, and it would seem to be that you do not need subjects in that case to, um, intelligize it. Say.
Wait, you're saying it would be intelligible
No,
by
I'm saying
the system
you wouldn't.
itself?
Yeah, it's what I've kind of been trying to talk about. Yeah.
Well, no. What do you mean intelligible within the system itself? The system can't intelligize what these things mean. The system kind of is just a process, right? It's just let's just say it's literally just math at that point.
Yeah. I mean, well, we kind of established, right, that well, I mean, none of you agreed, obviously, that it could have meaning via the not relations, and then of course its semantic content. I guess the way it's expressed would just be said not relations, right? Um, X is not, or X means not. Oh my God, sorry. X means not Y.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of contending, I guess, the idea that you need
Uh,
an intelligizer for an intelligible system. Right?
well, it would be the case that that would just be analytically true that X is not Y, B, Z, Z, whatever.
Well,
But
yeah, I just
I
mean
don't
in
see.
terms of meaning, right? It's not in terms of like
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't think the meaning, that meaning can just be sort of. Okay, wait. Let me think about this. So
Has anyone given you his
we,
objection?
no, dude, I ran this argument on like
Yeah.
so many. It has like 100% concession rate. Not even kidding. Wait.
Yeah, I just started reading model theory. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I just started like doing this nonsense.
Yeah, I haven't read that any of model theory, but so there would be a system that would just have basic, which rules. Let me write this down. Right. So there would be a system. It'd have rules.
Okay,
Uh,
just hold on. Wait, I do have to leave like in 30 minutes. So I'm just gonna keep that in mind.
all right, sure. So there would be a system. It would have rules, and it would, by virtue of those rules, it would make things which are statements or maybe even propositions or whatever that would be true or false, correct? Or they would just have like a basic sort of differential system where it's like X is not B, X is not Y, X is not Z, just basic stuff like that, right?
Yeah, there'd be an inferential relation such as that, and the way you're talking about they're like theorems. Like there's theorems that can be derived from the set of inferences, the set of rules of inference, and of course the set of axioms and the set of previously
Yes.
proved
Even if it
theorems
were to be the
deriving.
case that a subject would make the system, which I don't think that's, even if that's the case, I mean, the system could just be spawned out of entropy for all we know, right? Even if it were to be the case that a subject would make that
I
system,
know. I wouldn't even say it can be spawned out of entropy. No, I would agree that it has to be created by a subject. I fully agree with that. I would just, of course,
all
need to
right,
establish how it's not a genetic fallacy, of course.
all right, sure. So this, if the subject, even if the subject creates a system, it's irrelevant. But the system in and of itself, just the system, irrelevant of any subject who's there to interpret what it says, would have meaning. But the
Yes, and
system
then
is just processes that happen by virtue of the form that's laid out. I would
process
only,
implement the frameworks laid out. Well, I don't think the system is just process. That's a that'd be kind of like equivocating a little bit. Well, that'd be equivocating. I guess no, he's misrepresenting it. Sorry. I don't know if it's equivocating or not. Honestly, I don't even know what equivocation means. But yeah, sorry. So you can continue. You can continue. My bad. My bad.
yeah, okay. So the system would just be, let's say, would have a rule, like basic differential that X is not B or Z or Y or Z. And by virtue of that rule, it have meaning. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't. I want to say there'd be like some meta rule we call R, right? That determines like that rule like that. I just mean in terms of like because of course you can derive meaning right from not relations, right? And of course the system would just like
Okay, when you say you can
would
derive
invoke that.
meaning, what do you mean by that? You can derive meaning from not relations.
Like um and then I'm invoking subjects here, right? Just because I'm talking about myself here. Um wouldn't be needed elsewhere, but I'm saying I can derive what an apple is, right? By
Of course. But
looking at
I'm
all
saying, how can a
non-apple things.
system derive meaning from what something isn't? It can
Oh, like
just,
a quantifier would just be, not an instantiation, not a predicate, not a variable.
yeah, no, but I'm saying, how can a system have meaning by virtue of that being the case?
Well, that's just how I take meaning to be. I thought that's what we take it to
I
be,
would
right?
take it that is just semantic content without meaning.
Well, but semantic content is the way in which something is expressed, right? So
Yes, there can be something that's expressed, like you said, if it's completely unintelligible semantic content, it is semantic content without meaning, and it would only have meaning the moment it can be intelligentized by a subject.
right, but I mean, so maybe we can say that like a way to confirm meaning would be a subject, right? But you want to say a subject is required for meaning, right? And it seems to me that I can perfectly determine the meaning of a formal system simply by those not relations, right?
Yeah, so this relies on that there being like inherent meaning towards these things.
What do you not really? What do you mean?
Well, inherent meaning to, let's say there's something unintelligible, right? And its meaning is unintelligible to us for whatever period of time, and then we find out what it is, and then that's the confirmation of its meaning, which means the meaning was present before we even confirmed it, right?
That's fine for now.
Oh yeah, that's kind of literally what you said. So that would
Okay.
just I would deny that. I would say the meaning would only be present the moment we confirm it. I wouldn't say
Well,
things have meaning by virtue of like laws if we can't even confirm them.
I know because you hold like a different view on meaning. That's kind of like we're getting at here, right? Like I can accept that
Yes.
maybe there's these like basic categories for the formal system, what not and yes are, and these like transcendental in some way. But then, of course, those want to be categories of experience, right? Because what's kind of being disputed here is that whether or not we can have meaning without the categories of experience, right? And
Yeah,
I
we
just
hold to
haven't seen like
different. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, I'm just trying to demonstrate how within, I guess, your definition of intelligibility, um, and you haven't established, like, I guess, like why this sort of like not relation thing would be bad or whatever. Because I'm trying to give you an example. There is some formal system who is defined entirely by these negation operators. Okay,
Yeah.
um,
I understand that.
and
Yeah.
it exists, right? And it's
Yeah.
always has negation operators. But and these negation operators are what's expressing its meaning, right? And in the system, of course, what it means to be some quantifier is just not a predicate, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure why like a subject interpreting that would immediately mean that well to be a quantifier is to be not a subject, or sorry, not a predicate, for instance.
Yeah.
Like that's
Because
like the argument I
I
guess
would
I'm looking
say,
for.
well, I mean, this is kind of I would bring like a this is assuming a kind of a givenness to the meaning of these things. Because even if a system were to exist with that kind of like exhaustive like difference or negation kind of I don't even know if it would be difference, but it would be a negation rule that you put out, right? Even if that were to exist, that system wouldn't inherently have any meaning to that. It would still be based on like an unstable referent or human structure. So I
Well,
wouldn't say it would have inherent meaning.
I think I could even agree that like um of course, like you can interpret the system in many different ways, right? We're talking about whether it could have meaning, right? And it seems to me, of course, it could have meaning with the not operators, right? That's always being established,
When you
right?
say could have meaning in regards to again, I deny that
As far as like
systems
just
in and of
like
themselves can
logical
have meaning.
possibility,
I mean, it's logically possible for a system to be meaningful to a subject, but I don't know what you mean by could have meaning
it can
in
be
and of
like
itself.
metaphysically possible too. Um, or they think metaphysical possibility would be fine there. I don't know where to find metaphysical. Well, sorry, epistemic possibility.
Well,
Um,
I deny metaphysical modality because strictly speaking, God doesn't exist. But yeah,
and that's why I said epistemic. I realized my terrible mistake there, right? Um, but all I guess I'm trying to say is that we've established that there's some formal system whose meaning is defined or is set by these dot operators. These dot operators have always existed within the formal system, right? Or not existed, but they've always, I guess, been within it. Um, sorry, there's something going on in the chat, right? And of course, um, you're saying that intelligibility is requires these categories of experience, right? Well, I'm just trying to present here. There is a system which is intelligible, right? It could be intelligized, um, and
no, there's a system that
sorry,
is
the meaning itself,
that could
the
be
meaning itself.
intelligible.
Sorry, the meaning itself, like the meanings of the things, have no need for categories of experience. I'm trying to find your syllogism. Sorry, took a long up.
It's like
And of course, what you're
way
saying is
I don't
that
even know.
yeah, I found it. Of course, what you're saying is that there is no intelligibility, and there's no sorry. Oh my god. Okay, let me just repeat everything I said. Like I just gibbered a lot. I'm sorry, bro. Um,
It's fine.
if there's no categories of experience, then there's no intelligibility, and we just take intelligibility to be like meaning, and then of course it has semantic content that expresses it. Well, I'm just trying to show here that there is a formal system that is intelligible, right? It has meaning and semantic content without invoking categories of experience.
Yeah, no, I would say the way you would again. Uh, yeah, I understand that, and I don't think you have to repeat the system again because we kind of just been wasting time. But I don't know
I
if
think
it's
it's
a
a good
tracking
contingent.
error on my part, but here's the thing. I would say what it relies on is kind of the assumption that the system would have, by virtue of these rules, it would have meaning. I would say it would just have like potential meaning. I wouldn't call it like actualized. I just invoked Thomas Aquinas out of nowhere, but I would just say it wouldn't be actualized meaning if there's no one to interpret it having meaning. You could say, well, it has meaning because we know it has meaning by virtue of these systems that we know exist already. But I don't find that
Wait,
convincing.
are you saying like potentially, like there could exist? Wait, hold on. I'm not gonna say potentially because that obviously invokes metaphysical modality. What do you mean modally here? Just so I want to reformat this properly.
Okay, there could exist a system, right, that has, uh, let's say, these laws that exhaustively define what a thing is based on like some rule. Okay, that's simply put, right?
Yeah.
That system would only have meaning within like a contextual sort of let's say, what's the word for it? I'm like, it's a very simple word that I just forgot. Just like the contextual framing of it.
Okay.
That's the only way it could have meaning.
Right. Well, that's what's under
Contextual,
contention. Like, okay,
yeah, but we're
that's like what's
framing it
under.
right now.
Okay. Well, I think so. It's a small issue though. You just said potential. Let's just say potential just refers to possibility, like in a large
Yeah,
sense, just colloquially. Okay, it doesn't matter. You're saying that it is a. I'm throwing up. Sorry. That for something to be intelligible, like this is a necessary condition, right? If there are no
okay.
categories of experience, then there's no intelligibility, right? It's necessarily is the case that unless there's categories of experience, right, there will not be intelligibility, right? And
Yeah, and what I take those to be, so in that
well, I'm just
system
trying.
would have identity over time. Like that's
Well,
just
I'm just trying to say like I think what like a small error because like if you're saying that like well it could be the case it's possibly the case that there could be intelligibility in the system, um, and of course a subject could actualize it, right? Then like you're kind of like undermining if like the necessary connection, the necessary condition. That's I'm just misinterpreting what you said because if obviously like, if it could be the
yeah.
case, then well it's no longer necessary, right? Because well it could be very much be the case. There's this formal system such that without the categories of experience, right? Now I may have misinterpreted what you
So
said, but
yeah, so the way I was saying it, I'm pretty sure, was that it would have the potential to be actualized into meaning, which would kind of entail or imply that it would have meaning in the first place. But let's just look at it as if it's like an analogous way of looking at it would be kind of like taking a picture or whatever, and the picture would just show you, or it would be built in such a way that like a human can perceive what is being shown to you. It wouldn't in and of itself show you reality or have a meaning. So in the same way, I
well
think
yeah,
formal systems are built in a sort of what's the word for it? I don't know if it's anthropomorphic or
anthropomorphic.
anthro. Yeah, anthropomorphic, I think specifically relates to God. I don't know if there's another word for it maybe, but
Like
it's built in such a
personification.
way. Yeah, it's built in such a way that it's specifically human, right? So it would only have meaning if subjects were to exist. That is simply what I'm saying. There can exist
Okay.
meaning if there can exist meaning without a subject having to sort of necessitate all of it. But subjects have to obtain for there to be meaning, and that
Wait.
kind of follows from like mind independent. I later use that to prove mind independent reality, but
Wait, hold on. Hey, you said like subjects, like meaning could somewhat exist without subjects.
no, I'm saying subjects would have to obtain for there to be meaning.
Right. Well, that's what's under contention, though, right?
But you
Like
didn't you
if
agree that the system would have to be sort of okay, but the meaning we're talking about is anthropomorphic. There's no meaning in and of itself.
well, I am talking about meaning in of itself right now. To like attack that there must be categories of experience, particularly
So
for
what does it
meaning.
have? What does it have then?
It would have meaning. It would just be defined, of course, by the non-operators.
Yeah, it could be the case that a rock can have meaning before any subject lays its eyes upon it. Wouldn't that be analogous towards?
No, because that's an object. But I also don't think that's something you should say because you say like, well, it could have meaning before it's any subjects. And that does
Yeah.
undermine premise one and P2
Well,
like pretty
what if
badly.
it is the case that it
But
has
that's
meaning
that's
without
low key
any?
like a
No, 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 no.
contradiction.
Wait,
I'm
wait, wait,
sorry.
wait, wait. Low key. Wait, I'm about to do some crazy. What
Yeah.
if it's the case that it has meaning, regardless of any subject, any finite subject, right? Let's say
You
it's in the
think
mind
God
of
gives it
God.
meaning?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the Berkeleyan move, bro.
Well, that would, of course, just, of course, presuppose God before we establish that God exists, right? Because I'm more so
Well,
investing getting an attack on P3, right? And of course, in P2 and P1 by resolve, of course. Sorry. No, I'm attacking P2 and P1, so not P3. Of
yeah.
course, that would
So
just kind of
you're
presuppose
kind of
God.
attacking my theory though, more so than the actual premises, no?
Well, I'm attacking maybe like your take on intelligibility in regards to P2 and P1.
Well, my take would hold up because it's just God, bro. That's kind of, this is not ad hoc, by the way. This is my theory. I just low key forgot I believed in God.
It's fine. Well, I mean, so okay, so I guess we have to reformat it then, right? Because if you're going to say that like okay, in terms of like the syllogism, right? If you're going to say, well, a rock could have meaning prior to any subjects, and then we'll qualify finite later, then it is not necessarily the case that the categories of experience would be required for intelligibility and therefore meaning, right? So
No,
that would undermine
when
P1.
it comes,
But
well, it would have
like,
meaning within the categories, but by virtue of like the meaning being
oh my God,
let's say
sorry,
in the mind of God.
the formal
Yeah.
system, not the object. I'm not the if it's an object, obviously there's something there going on. But I just meant in the formal system because it seems to be said like there could exist a formal system prior to any finite subjects, in which case that formal system, of course, could have meaning, right? It's like potential or
Yeah, it
whatever.
would have meaning in the mind of God, sure.
Uh, well, I mean, I'm attacking like P1 and P2 does. Like God doesn't exist yet. But also,
What,
do you take like the
no,
categories of
wait.
like experience for God to be identical to our categories?
When you're attacking P1 and P2, you're attacking specifically my theory in regards to how I see uh how I take meaning, what I take meaning to mean or intelligibility, right?
Wait,
That's specific.
it seems well. It seems like then with like the attack I just gave using formal. Sorry, like the kind of clear would be. I don't know what the hell would be honestly. The questions I gave regarding formal systems, um, P1 would just kind of like presuppose that God exists, right?
Well,
Because
when it
probably
regards
take
to formal systems, I would say if there was no, let's say if I was an idealist without believing in God. So an idealist can think that, for example, we can observe that a universe existed before any humans. Let's say I was an atheistic idealist. They would just say that's like just a model of kind of what I forgot. I read this like kind of response a while back. I'd have to reread it again. But it's just a model describing sort of our inferences and what uh might be the case based on assumptions and nothing else.
okay. Wait,
It just
we need to stop with the objects though. That's definitely I think confusing both of us because the
sure,
objects
sure, 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 sure.
like how like
Sure.
obviously
So
like an
I would just
object
say,
requires like
yeah,
things. You
I
know, I'm
would
not
just
gonna
say
deny
when you're,
that.
yeah. So I would just say your definition of meaning, you said it's primitive. What, let's go back to that. What do you mean by primitive?
Well, that's why I clarified it after. Primitive just means, like I said, that like it can only be defined extensionally or with synonyms. Okay, and then I did clarify that I just
Cinnamons?
didn't mean to be like synonyms,
Okay.
synonymous words, right? Um,
Yeah, so that primitivity would still be like very like human, let's just say.
well, that's why I kind of clarified it. Like X can be expressed, but the main point I'm kind of attacking here is like within your own definitions. It seems that when you use the word intelligible, right? Um, or there can be no intelligibility without categories experience. Sorry, that would just presuppose that like God exists, and furthermore, because you said that God like can observe this, like can I guess like grasp maybe this formal system prior to any finite minds. Um, so there's two. Sorry, there's a disjunction. There's two, not disjunction. Oh my God, there's two possible options I think for you right now. Either God exists to observe and understand the formal systems, in which case God exists based on your definition of intelligibility, like immediately, right? Or that there is meaning and intelligibility independent of the categories of experience, which means ultimately that P1 would force fail.
Independent of the categories of experience in regards to nobody having to experience them.
Sorry?
When you say independent of the categories of experience, how are they independent of them?
Well, like a formal system when it invoked the categories that, like we did the hierarchical category thing, like, you know, with like space and time and then the other categories, it would invoke the
Yeah,
second categories.
it wouldn't invoke because that would take identity to be like a category of experience.
Um, so, I'm sorry, you said like identity over time. What were we even talking about?
Identity in general, yeah.
I know we're talking about like intelligent. They're talking about intelligent. Like things can't be intelligible without like identity over time, though, right? And that's when we got into the formal systems.
No, I said things. No. I said things have to. I said things have to be to have need identity over time to be intelligible. But then we spoke about well, there can be like a statement, and it can its identity in regards to its meaning can change over time. And I was like, sure, but it would be like fixed within that particular whatever. That's kind of how the conversation went. So if nothing, so the very basic idea of it is if nothing had identity over time, there would not be a thing that you can describe at any given moment.
Well, I mean, I can like things like identity, like no, it came from we were talking about the properties of like meaning. Oh my God, that's I think what originally came.
Yeah.
Was it? It's before. After, I don't know, dude. This is being recorded. I hope. So we can clarify that later. But this is in particular regards to identity over time, because I could accept like within some oh my God, formal system, like things are identical to themselves, right? I wouldn't say like they're in time though, in terms of like the way you're invoking it seems.
In time, as in, so they're not in time. Okay, well, how are you invoking time here? Say they're not then.
I can just feel like you hold to the Kantian conception of time.
Nah,
Okay, good. You don't. Okay, I'm good then. I how do you mean time? I can just think of however you mean it.
time. So I would hold that time as like real ontology. So like it would be the case that temporalness would structure our reality, right? Or
Yeah.
phenomenological reality.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then yeah. No, I can hold to that, and of course, I wouldn't say the formal systems. I don't know, say the formal like as an ontology, or exists in a robust sense, or um, as you get what I'm saying, right? So, I mean, I can accept it being like this immaterial, of course, mental conception or just conception in general, right? All I'm just trying to demonstrate, like I said earlier, is that if this mental conception attains and it has intelligibility, then of course you don't need the categories of experience for intelligibility, or you need to invoke God within your definition of intelligibility.
Wait, so
And that's
if
my
this yeah,
main spirit tip right now is that.
so if this conception obtains mentally, is that what you said?
Like a mental conception, like an immaterial thing, yeah. The formal system, yeah.
Of the mental conception of the formal system, if that obtains, then you would have meaning without a subject. Are you talking about us thinking about the mental system
Oh
potentially
no,
obtaining?
like yeah, I can accept thinking, yeah. I mean the meaning when obtained. Sorry. Oh my God.
Can't the meaning only obtain within a subject?
Well, sorry, determined. Oh, that's a little cute blender. I mean determined.
Oh,
Remember, because
okay.
we were talking about the genetic fallacy earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, you said it, if the meaning. Okay, can you just clarify again what you said?
Yeah. So like the whole thing what I said.
When you said the meaning can obtain within mental,
Like
can you
if we have
re-clarify?
like this formal system, yeah, this formal system which does not invoke categories of experience. Excuse me. Oh my God. For its meaning, it's like this meaning is not invoke categories of experience. Um, then of course meaning and intelligibility can arise without categories of experience.
I would wait. I feel like we're going in circles because didn't I just say I take identity to be a category of experience?
Um, I think I said I can like accept that or something. I mean like identity, the other
Well,
categories
when
like identity
the
over time.
system would rely on identity,
Yeah, no, I mean
because
like
if
identity over time.
A, I just take identity in general to be a category.
No, yeah, I know. I just you said identity over time when we first started discussing it, so I mean sorry.
Yeah, the system. For example, even if I grant that identity over time would obtain, there would still be identity, which would be a
No, I
category
can
of
accept
experience.
identity. I know I agree with identity. I agree with your first category of like space and time, and I also agree with identity would be another category. I don't know where we place it in the hierarchy.
Yeah,
No, I agree
so the
identity.
categories of experience would obtain.
Um, wait, no, only a few of them, but not all of them. Then
Well, even if it were to be the case, right, that identity over time wouldn't obtain, which I'm pretty sure it would. But even if I grant you that, let's say I separate that from the categories of experience. I'm just going to do that because you said you have to go, right? So even if I
why don't
grant
you
you that
go?
identity
No, I
over
guess
time would
I have
obtain,
like 20 more minutes. I don't care.
okay. Even if okay, I'm just going to go with the route of granting you that identity over time wouldn't obtain. And I just go for like a reductive sort of a sense of like what the categories are. And it would just be the case that it would be like identity and the other ones that you name. Would that be a problem
Right.
necessarily, or
Yeah, because okay, I can accept that the very first categories are required like, in the hierarchy are required for intelligibility or meaning. Except that
sure?
no, actually, I don't even need to because the way you're invoking time. If you invoke time in the Kantian sense, I need to. I don't even need to invoke. I don't need to for this actually. Um, but I can accept the identity as a category, which Kantian-wise, it's actually not a category, but I can accept that it would obtain. Let's take identity. You say your definition of categories. Under your account, identity does in fact obtain, yes, but other categories wouldn't obtain. And presumably, you're saying is here is that, especially if you're at least inspired by Kantian in the slightest, that of course these categories that would need to be used all together. They're being unified here, right? So all other categories together would constitute the meaning.
I'm not that Kantian though. I wouldn't need that. I would just need it. I could give like a very reductive thing that would be the case, that identity as a category of experience, and I can only take identity and just keep it with that. And if that obtains, I'll be fine with that. I'm pretty sure. I mean, if I see a problem, then maybe I'll reformulate it in the future, but I could be fine with it. Only identity obtained.
I mean, I'm just trying to think.
I just need one thing. I really just need one thing.
Well, the one thing's important. Well, okay. Then you're not like. So for you, intelligibility then would not require a unified sort of. So intelligibility could obtain like only one category.
I mean, sure. Let's just have it, because I still think that it would still be the case that like identity over time all this would be required for intelligibility, but okay. I'm fine with just granting it that it will only require like identity and maybe a few others.
I feel like there's like a kind of like a reductio here I can run, because like if it seems the way you justify space and time, do you justify that the Kantian way, where it's just like these are necessary conditions for experience?
Space and time?
Yeah. As in there would be a contradiction if you didn't have like space and time, at least I guess like intelligibility or experience.
Well, the way I would look at experience is that experience is just like synapses that are ordered in such a way.
I just mean like perceptions.
Yeah, that would be perceptions as well, like just synapses that are ordered in such a way that sort of allow us to have experience. So I would say that space and time, or temporality in general, in a like ordered in a lawful way, would have to be the case, because otherwise, I mean, you wouldn't have.
Well, you take a distinction. But I think you said space and time are like mind dependent though.
Yeah, they'd be mind dependent.
And of course,
wait. They would be.
It seems like you kind of said they'd be mind independent, like lawfully ordering the world.
Yeah, they would actually not be. I would say that they're kind of. Well, I wouldn't take time itself to be lawfully ordering our synapses. Just that I would take a different category in regards to the way our like synapses are ordered, or the way we look at like memories or whatever.
Maybe perceptions that might just be like appearances. Might be the best word. Appearances. I guess
maybe that just might be an entirely new category. I might low-key just be making a new philosophy on the spot here, but that's how I understood, or well, that's how I made my own kind of theory when I was reading The Idealist, is that the way our synapses are ordered itself is not kind of it's a precondition for us having experience.
Yeah, the reduction sort of would be like a precondition, like materially, but not like logically or like.
What do you mean materially?
Like physical modality. Like of course you need eyes to see things, right? But like the modalities we're kind of invoking here, right? It'd be different. But just the reductio is I'm trying to run. And I think it still can succeed. I think it still can succeed. Is that oh my god, I swear if I forget it, I'm gonna like bash my head in. Hold on, let me scroll up your arguments so I can run myself with it. Okay, got it. So we established at the beginning of the conversation that there's a hierarchy of categories, such that the second group of categories is present but not present in everything, while the first group of categories, of course, is present in everything, right? And you establish that there could be intelligibility with only one category, and of course, you didn't make a distinction between the first and second categories. So it seems to me you just kind of said there that there could be, for instance, and we took the first categories to be space and time because of the Kantian reductio argument that you can very easily run, that you can have then an appearance or perception that's intelligible without space or without time, which would be, of course, you'd be harms. You'd be against the Kantian argument then, of course. So you're saying that we could have experiences then, or could have intelligibility without space and time. Sorry, without one of the two. When you need both, if you're like a.
Well, I don't take time to be like. I don't think time to be something.
One more thing. I'm sorry. I don't take it to be something either. I don't either, right? But especially right now, I don't think it to be anything right now. But and then also the furthermore that we also established in the hierarchy, space and time have to be present for everything. But with what you said, there could be situations wherein there is no space or there is no time. Of course, it should be like a direct, P not P with what you said. And it didn't sound like you kind of like misspoke there. Maybe you did. I don't know if you claim you did, honestly. But those are my two main things right now, I think.
Wait, did I say there could be a situation where there's no space or time, or what?
Well, you said that you require only one category for intelligibility.
Oh, that was probably just me, because that was kind of me just probably saying all I need is identity. Well, that's kind of a LARP. I did also say that it would also be the case that our memories would have to be ordered kind of temporally in a way that is, I guess you could say, could describe what time is in regards to how we like order our synapses in a lawful way. So that would be another category of experience. Because like, why aren't we experiencing our memories? Like, why are we experiencing our memories even in a sequenced way at all? You know what I mean? It would be the
Well,
case
that's
that
due like there's like a unifying subject, right? That unifies them. But I
yeah,
thought your argument for God would like say like that's actually God that's unifying it, right? Unifying the
it,
reference.
it that would be one of the. Well, I need to look at my argument because it was
Well, it just
kind
seems
of
to
more
me if
about
if
yeah.
actually the subject that unifies it, then obviously you don't need God. Then you can just postulate God existing.
What you said?
It will. Sorry.
Yeah. What did you say? Can you repeat
Oh,
what
I
you said?
said, well, if you're saying it's actually the subject that unifies the experiences, right? Then it seems to me that the idea that you need God to unify it and to make the shared reference, right? Um, of course, you wouldn't need God because it's actually the subject unifying it.
Yeah. No, no. Of course, I wouldn't say the subject. I wouldn't say that like the subject can just unify it themselves. But the argument, I'm pretty sure I'm not even arguing about the subject. It's just
Okay, then
about
ignore what I said there. Then I guess ignore it there.
yeah. So where were we at? Oh yeah, I was
So
saying
the
the only
first two things.
category. Yeah,
Do you want me
I
to repeat
wouldn't
it?
need. Yeah, so I wouldn't only follow identity as a sort of a the only category. I also said that the
No, no,
sequencing
no.
of our
I'm not
synapses.
saying.
Yeah.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that. What I mean I don't mean that. What I mean in regards to this in particular is that you said because I was under the impression that you need all categories interacting for intelligibility, right? Especially the high one space and time.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
like
you
a
said
Kantian view, right?
yeah, yeah, and then we're clarifying it right now, and I think finding possible issues. And then in the argument I said that yeah, it uses the argument, or sorry, oh my god, the formal system uses identity, which you take to be a category. Now, of course, then I go, well, that's not all the categories. Then he said, no, it's fine. There can be intelligibility with only one category. This undermines
Oh
two
no, so
things.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so no. I would say the system would also have temporalness within the way it would have meaning. Its meaning cannot be without a temporality or like sort of a.
Well, your
'Cause
account of temporality is
you're
just like
the
having
way you're
ontology, right?
articulating it. What'd you say?
But your account of temporality is like being having like it's like a sense of ontology, right?
My account of temporality is that all things would be ordered in a mind dependent way such that we can experience them. It would still be ordered in that way if it were to have meaning. If it's not ordered in that way, it wouldn't have any meaning whatsoever. So the moment you say, well, the system would have a differential sort of meaning, well, that would require for it to be
Oh well,
ordered.
that's the Kantian understanding. You didn't say you weren't a Kantian on that. Oh, okay.
Well, no, no. The idea is that for it to have a sort of meaning, right? It
Hmm.
would have to still be ordered in the way that, like, let's just say our synapses are, right? Our mind works. Because I don't take it to be that there's any sort of, how do I articulate this? Um, the way the universe is ordered is very anthropomorphic, I would say, right? So if it were to be the case that no God exists, and let's say I'm an idealist, atheistic idealist, I would just say the moment you die, the universe ends, right? Or what we conceive of as existence ends at all times, everywhere. Because the way we speak of like a system, you say it has differential meaning. That would be ordered in such a way where there's like a sentence, it has a conclusion, it has this and that, this and that, this and that. This only makes sense within that kind of temporalness, I would say. Or unless you're saying
Okay.
that system would just, yeah, it's just confusing.
I'm not gonna get mad at you for trying to be mean for you like misspeaking. Like I've misspoken a lot here, but you did say that did have time like this category did have like this sort of like ontological aspect to it, something really about it. Right? So that's why I was like, well, um, you're definitely not Kantian time, because like Kantian would extrapolate kind of what you just said, where it's succession, right? Um,
Yeah,
between
maybe I
one,
probably
two, three.
misspoke. Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. Okay. Um, the so okay, the points do still stand, the 2 points are represented, and I'll rearticulate them just because I know we've been all over the place recently. I mean, you and I both, obviously, right? It's me in the chat, bro. Of course, it seems to me that you said previously, you did agree to this, that there could be intelligibility with only one category, right? Now, even if the formal system invokes multiple categories, you did kind of say, well, there could be one category, right? So obviously,
Yeah, no,
then,
I said I was yeah, I clarified that I was kind of just being, I don't know what the word for it is. I was just saying, oh, I only need identity. I was kind of, I don't know, like LARPing. I then clarified that it would still require like temporality and some other categories that would be necessary.
okay, so, well, I mean, if you're saying then like that, is it how would you determine, like, because I'm speaking abstractly here, right? Not just merely in terms of like my particular argument, like, using the formal system, right, as like a way of deriving meaning inferentially, or not relationally. Sorry. Um, it would seem just pretty ad hoc, right? If we're just going to say that, well, the varying forms of intelligibility require varying forms of like how much the categories are partaking in them, like how many categories in particular. Like, how would you determine like what categories kind of require what, especially in
How
the
do
way that
I
you're invoking them
determine?
here?
Yeah, so how would I determine what categories would have to obtain? Is what you're asking, or what
Well,
categories
because
are required?
because now we're differentiating between like because you're differentiating, sorry, between there's a spectrum here, right? Like almost like a spectrum of intelligibility. It's like, I guess an example, analogy, sorry, a spectrum of intelligibility, right? And um, things could be intelligible with not all the categories, right? You could have, and I don't know, you said, but you may take half the categories, working or whatever, and something is intelligible, right? So I'm kind of like asking here, it's like, well, what would be the rule for that? Like abstractly speaking, or how would you determine, what categories are necessary for what thing?
Yeah. So the rule for that, I guess I haven't really set up my system to be in such a way where I can do that. It'll probably require me to uh, probably reflect more on that. But on the moment, I can just say it is the case that there are certain categories which have to obtain, uh, and the other categories like identity over time, I still think would obtain uh,
Mm-hmm.
identity over time within the system because I take identity over time to just be things being identical to itself over a period of time, such that they don't change by virtue of them being under like a different like succession or not succession. I don't know, just it would kind of be the same with how I said temporality, how our experience is ordered, right? I would still take it to be that all the categories must obtain, sure.
Okay. Well, um, well, wait. You saying now all the categories have to obtain for like there to be meaning?
Yeah, because I was like, sure, I can give up identity over time, but now I've kind of realized identity over time and the temporalness I described in the synapses are like the same thing. So yeah,
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna have to walk back on that. I've been good. I've been all over the place here.
oh, it's fine, dude. Okay, that does contradict what you said earlier, even like when you clarified it, because it's still like you can accept, well, it's actually more. But okay, I'm not gonna get mad that you misspoke. Or maybe you misspoke. I don't care. I misspoke a lot here. I made several blunders already, right? I don't
Yeah,
care.
it does contradict what I said earlier. I was low key ready to say, okay, sure, I'll grant you the identity over time is in a category, but then I realized that upon reflection, that like the succession of synapses would be identity over time. That like, oh wait, you would still need it. That's kind of how I came to that.
Okay, well, you did. Okay, I do want to clarify that because you said you added another category using the synapses, and the synapses like how it organizes perception, right? There's some category which
Oh
dictates
no, that's just
dictates
identity
that.
over time, or just like the succession of that would be a different category, but it would have identity over time, or would have to have identity over time.
Like the biological process that occurs there is occurring to that rule of like identity over time.
When in regards to synapses being ordered lawfully,
Well, not so much like them being ordered lawfully in a sense like they're being like sequential and we can differentiate between them. But you're kind of talking if you're talking about perception, like what they were kind of doing, I think is more so kind of what's going on there.
yeah, the synapses would necessitate some sort of I guess let's say transcendental category. in regards to how they work. Because there's
What
no
category would
like
that be though?
what category would that be?
Yeah.
So like the temporality and the way they're ordered, like we see the synapses in order, like we're in the moment and then we're in the future. Kind of colloquially just saying, right? We're in the moment, we
Mhm.
anticipate the future, and the future is anticipated and it gets fulfilled in the moment, right? These kind of things, I wouldn't say are just like given or they just are. I would say that they're kind of transcendental sort of categories in and of themselves.
Yeah. Okay. I was questioning that because if you're going to say it's like a new category that's specifically perceptual, and then sorry, that's specifically perceptual, then obviously that seems to me obvious that wouldn't apply to the formal system contention I gave you earlier. Okay, so now you do agree though that um, all the categories would be
Wait,
required.
wait.
Oh wait,
I
sorry,
agree
hold on.
that I said that all reality is perceptual.
Yeah, no, I was talking about with
It
regards
would,
to the formal system because
yeah,
if
the
you're
formal
saying that
system
like
would still, the formal system would it, where would it exist exactly? Like in the mind? Or?
yeah, I guess it exists in the mind, yeah. But if you're gonna say like well then you're probably like a
Wait,
third layer of categories that actually targets these and
wait,
not
no, no, no,
that.
no, no. If it exists in the mind, that boom, that's it. Needs a subject.
Like, well, okay, that's like the genetic fallacy that we're talking about with meaning. Because this goes
How?
back to
No,
meaning,
if you
right?
say it exists in the mind, it literally is in a subject. Is
Oh,
that
I'm sorry,
different?
I meant with regards to like meaning though. Because the original
The
contention
system
was
itself would only exist in like a mind.
okay, yeah, okay, accept that. Well, I'll accept that. Face value, right? I accept that. I maybe I misspoke or something. But the original contention I proposed right, earlier, like 20 minutes ago probably, was that well, this undermines P1, right? Because either intelligibility, the definition of intelligibility requires that God exists, or number two, that there could be um, intelligibility without without all the categories, right? But now you're saying you need all the categories for formal systems, right? So now we're back to that sort of question with
Well,
regards
the
to
idea
well,
is the system would only exist in the mind, so it would assess
right?
that
But the
categories.
meaning though, the intelligibility, the meaning of the system, the meaning is inferred by within the relation. Oh my God, sorry, within the
It,
relational meaning. Sorry.
is that meant to exist outside the mind?
No, I'm not saying that. I can accept that exists within mind.
Yeah, but how would it be? It would if it exists in the mind. I mean, it's interpreted by the
Right,
categories
but
of experience.
that doesn't mean those the meaning of it though does, right? Because that's what we clarified, like the genetic fallacy. Sorry.
I'm curious, who posited this critique, or is it just one you made up on the fly? I want to read
Dude,
on this specifically on a paper
I was
because
low key just
I
gonna like I was gonna run some other thing, but then I just all of just came up with this all of a sudden. I can like try and articulate it for you like in a message though. Like I can like you have Discord.
yeah, you can just add me and articulate because listen, I feel like we're gonna keep disagreeing with each other on this. I would maybe
Well,
because you say it
we
exists
can
in a
like
mind. Yeah.
yeah. Well, what we can do is we can do like kind of like fake like kind of like conclusions in the sense like where we recapitulate everything we said, where we believe the opponent went wrong, where we believe the opponent lost in certain areas, right? And then from there it'd be easier for us to try and talk what's going on because there's a lot of concepts obviously we're using right now.
Sure, sure.
You want to go first? I go first.
You can go first.
Okay. So the first two contentions that we derived from the formal system example were that you could either have a formal system that has its meaning independent or not within the categories of experience, which would undermine premise one, wherein we say that intelligibility requires the categories of experience, or that intelligibility, in its own definition, requires that God exists. We clarified this with the other examples. We went that he redid it right, and he said that well, one category could obtain, and then we did it again. We said no, that actually all categories have to obtain, right? Um, and of course, then that just goes right back to the question where a meaning of a formal system could obtain or exist, or it could have meaning, sorry, um, without all the categories of experience, right?
Okay.
Which, of
That's
course, would undermine premise
that's it.
one. Yeah.
All right. So my thing is kind of just that when we speak about the categories of experience specifically being required for meaning in the syllogism, I would just take it to be that if a formal system were to exist within the mind, like you said, it would still be under the categories of experience, or it would be mind dependent, which I'm willing to accept that there could be a formal system that could have meaning that would be mind dependent still. Uh, but all I would have to do there is just kind of switch out um, the syllogism here to be something else. I don't think that would actually affect the argument at all, because ultimately all that syllogism is trying to do is to just prove that in reality is mind dependent. But regardless of that, I still think that formal system, in regards to its meaning, it would only have meaning specifically oriented towards the contextual framework of a subject